Thank you very much, Scott. Thank you for organizing these events. These are phenomenal and really inspired me to really dig into Ruby AI. So thank you very much. So today I want to talk a little bit about Ruby AI, where it's been, what it looks like right now, and what the future might look like. If you don't know me, my name is Matt. I'm the author of the Ruby AI newsletter and a longtime Rubyist. And I want to start by looking at Ruby AI's past. What libraries have been built and developed to get us to this point? And to do so, I want to start by looking at the top 20 Ruby gems, AI Ruby gems, by star on GitHub. So if you look at the entirety of the Ruby AI gem ecosystem, there are currently over 1,300 Ruby gems built by over 840 developers that power 14,000 open source repositories. And if we go and look at the top 20, we can already see that generative AI is leading the way over the course of the entire Ruby AI ecosystem. But I want to point out some of the ones that have been built along the way in the past. The first is R2, which is a robotics and electronics library. This was an incredibly cool project, and if somebody wants to resurrect this, I would love to see that happen. Another is decision tree, a machine learning decision tree algorithm. In the past, we also had Treat, which was a very comprehensive library for natural language processing. We had two projects that predate GitHub that originally started on RubyForge. We have the Data Science Toolkit, and we have Scientific Ruby's data analysis with Ruby library. On the second page, we have a number of gems by Andrew Kane, who is one of the all-time Ruby AI greats. If you're not familiar with his work, I highly recommend you check it out and look at the work that he's done in the Ruby AI space. We also have another very long-running project from RubyForge, AI for R, which has recently been revamped and overhauled and released a major version 2 update. So that's incredibly impressive, and what I want to really emphasize is that the date column, a lot of these are 2025. Over 70% of these gems have been updated within the last year. So the Ruby AI ecosystem is strong, consistent, and stable. So where are we at right now? I want to talk a little bit about the present, which there have been a ton of developments over the last 6 months in the Ruby AI ecosystem space. So we have a large number of generative AI frameworks. These include Ruby LLM, DSPY, Active Agent, Wraith, Sublayer, and Active Genie. And I highlighted these libraries, even though there are some other very good ones out there in the space. I highlighted these because of the strong focus they've taken on documentation. Each one of these has put a lot of work into their documentation sites and really showcasing the work that they're doing and the updates that they're making. Not to single anyone out, but Ruby LLM in particular has been shipping a ton of updates and even has developed its own ecosystem with tooling for model context protocol, for building prompts, and for structured outputs, which is very impressive. And other languages have taken notice and have started adopting these patterns in their frameworks as well. I want to highlight some of the other projects that are going on in the space right now. Obi Fernandez gets his own slide because he's been putting out a ton of libraries. He's released his own generative AI framework in Rakes. He has a workflow engine in Roast. He has an open router API client, which allows you to connect to any generative AI model. And he also has Claude on Rails, which helps you spin up a number of Claude AI coding assistants to work on your code base for you. And then if we look at the ecosystem for LLM models as a whole, we have comprehensive AI client libraries. We have libraries for building AI agents. Langchain.rb was one that wasn't mentioned on the framework slide, but it's a very impressive library. We have AI agents from Chatboot, which allows you to build independent agents that you can chain together. And we have our own Valentino Stoll's agentic library, which allows you to build, plan, and execute style agents. We also have a number of developments in advanced AI. Red Candle allows you to run LLMs locally. We have a comprehensive set of gems for building retrieval augmented generation systems in Ragnar, Ragdoll, and another one that'll be coming out in the next week or so that I'm excited about. We have MCP server capabilities in Fast MCP, Action MCP, and the official MCP client. And we have some new and exciting gems that I wanted to point out. One is Scott Warner's VSM gem for building viable system model agents. These are essentially self-assembling agents. We have the POMO library for prompt-oriented markup language, which allows you to build structured prompts. And we have the Leva evaluation framework, which allows you to evaluate how your prompts are doing in your applications, which integrates into Rails. So I want to take a look at the future. Initially, I wanted to call this talk How Ruby Can Win in the Age of Artificial Intelligence. But I don't think win is the right word. I think flourish is a much better word. And in order to do so, we have to address one major problem. And that problem is this, unfortunately, goofy-looking graph, but I'll explain it in a second. I want to talk about how strong the community is first, though. Currently, there are over 50,000 organizations developing with Ruby. There are over 100 consultancies offering Ruby and Rails services. Of the public-facing Ruby-centric organizations, these combine for over a $500 billion market capitalization. And every week, there are regularly over 200 positions that I surface for the Ruby AI newsletter. So the state of the Ruby AI community is very strong right now. And then there's Rails itself. If you saw the keynote from Rails World, you know that Rails is innovating even to this day. It is a strong and stable platform. I want to point out just a couple of the new features that Rails announced at the recent Rails World Conference. They now have markdown rendering, which allows you to serve LLMs.txt files. They have background job workflows. They have elastic style search, database tenants, and full support for native applications. Rails is the most complete, stable, and full-featured web application framework. Between the current state of the Ruby AI ecosystem and Rails, there is no better software platform for delivering real applications to real people. So what's the problem? Now we get to the chart slide. This chart is the current problem. What is this? Does anybody want to take a guess what this chart might represent?
I guess the x-axis is time, and that thing over there is JavaScript.
No, not JavaScript, but it's new users to Ruby. This tracks from 2008 to today the flow of new users to GitHub that try out the Ruby programming language. We can see that there is a massive spike during COVID when hundreds of thousands of people decided to pick up programming and try out Ruby. But the overall trend line is clear. New developers to Ruby is dropping off, and that's a big problem. So how do we address that problem? And I don't want this you to think that this is doom and gloom. I wouldn't be standing here if I thought this trend line was going to continue down. I'm standing here because I think this is the most exciting point in Ruby's history. I don't believe that this point is the end. I believe we're starting here again. And I think the cornerstone of that resurgence is going to be a focus on junior developers. The biggest reason for the drop in new users to Ruby is that there are no economic opportunities for junior developers. Less than 1% of the job opportunities I see coming through the newsletter are focused on junior positions. So while Ruby may be stronger than ever, without a continuous influx of new developers and talent, it will slowly fade away. And without opportunities for beginners to build a career, we won't see an influx of new Rubyists. The good news is there are concrete steps that we can take to reverse this trend, and everything to do with how we ship software for Ruby AI. The first is to hire, train, and mentor junior developers. If your organization relies on Ruby, make a concentrated effort to foster new talent. Now, not everybody is in a position to hire new developers, but there are other steps that we can take as a community. And that revolves around documentation. We can take developers from 0 to 1 faster than any other programming language, but it requires a new way of thinking about how we ship open source software. When you create a new shared piece of software like a Ruby gem, your documentation needs to speak to two audiences now, both humans and machines. First, you should have documentation. That's the most important part. But your documentation should also be beginner-friendly, with comprehensive installation and setup instructions, along with Hello World-style examples. When a new developer can build something real, it provides a positive feedback loop that encourages them to keep going. But a lot of the content now I see assumes at least an intermediate or advanced level of experience. Your documentation site should also serve LLM-friendly markdown and instructions, and blogs and tutorials that you write should be LLM-enabled. What I mean by that is that a developer should be able to post your blog URL into Claude Code and have it recreate the steps in the tutorial. And the final part is that your documentation should probably be part of continuous integration. Do your LLM instructions produce verifiable results with AI-assisted coding agents across multiple LLM models? AI-assisted coding is here to stay, and this is how new developers will learn. So it's important that your libraries work with the latest LLM models. Yes, it's a lot of work, but it makes LLMs more likely to recommend your libraries, and this is the entry point for new developers now. If Ruby's libraries work seamlessly with AI-assisted coding tools, Ruby can influence an entirely new generation of programmers. And the last step is collaboration. We need to think bigger. Right now, I see a lot of duplication of efforts in the Ruby AI space, which is okay. It's good to experiment and try out new things and see what works. But together, we need to create the pieces of a cohesive Ruby AI ecosystem. Every Ruby AI library should work seamlessly with every other Ruby AI library. Standardized clients and servers for communications between LLMs, applications, libraries, and users, plug-and-play algorithms, self-assembling AI agents and workflows, all with first-class documentation and type safety for better understanding and guardrails when working with LLMs. We can lead the way by simplifying the entire experience of programming AI applications, the same way that Rails simplified the experience of building table-backed applications. Ruby has always flourished by simplifying the complexity, and we can do that again. So what's next for Ruby AI News? The next edition of the newsletter comes out this Friday. Next week, I'll be publishing an interview with Carmine Paolino, the creator of Ruby LLM. I'll be making all of the gems and open source data available. The full list of gems is now available on GitHub at roboruby/RubyAIGems. The other thing that I'm working on is a job matching platform. Unfortunately, there are far too many jobs to put into the newsletter, but it's still important to make sure developers find the right opportunity. So you'll be able to subscribe and get a weekly jobs report with opportunities that match your skill set, your desired criteria, and anything else you would like, location, things along those lines. So, and much more in the coming months, so stay tuned.